CC Gurukul lecture in continuation with the series on sociology of work. In today's lecture, I am going to talk about work in historical perspective. What this exactly we're going to do in this lecture is try to trace back the development of work, the notion of work. So today we know that there are so many areas related to understanding of work like interpersonal relations, meeting target, productivity, efficiency, promotions. All these are part of the work culture in today's industrial society, or we can say today's modern complex industrial society. So was work similar when this entire society started to develop? And therefore we kind of understand the historical perspective, how the notion of time developed, how people started kind of moving, shifting from production for their consumption, for the subsistence consumption, to producing for the market. And once production started for the market, then there was a question of exchange and the concept of profit comes in. So capitalist build in. So this is basically going to talk about how we knew the whole idea of life, work, leisure. These are three aspects which in industrial modern society are concerned as belonging to three different domains, but is in say earliest forms of society or the simplest society, which we generally refer to as primitive society. The whole idea was to consider it as underdeveloped, and the sense that there was no kind of a distinction between leisure and work. While working they would leisure, or while kind of leisure was a part of the work. So how did this whole idea of distinguishing between work for leisure or kind of just working for the market comes in? It is that with that objective that we are going to understand work in historical perspective. And so we know the point of distinction is between the simple society, or what we call as the society which was based on subsistence economy, that is production was being done within the household, and who were the people who were working? It was the members of the family. So there was no kind of an employer-employee relation. Everybody were equally working, and the product was equally enjoyed by everybody. So with the coming of the industrial society, or what we kind of talk about as the mark which differentiate between the two types of society, would be the Reformation and then the Industrial Revolution. So then we start kind of comparing the primitive society, the simple society, and the complex industrial modern society. So this transition is kind of traced here with reference to gathering and hunting to sedentary agriculture. So the society which was just kind of concerned in gathering food, so consumption of for the basic survival, that is the group would move out into the jungles or into the open, collect food and kind of hunt for their food, and that's it. So then it was moving towards a sedentary agriculture, and this is also the reason is not only to look into the realm of economy, we also kind of have to look into what was happening in the social realm. So there was an increase in because food was in they were kind of just utilizing time for gathering and then into consumption and eating. So the population was moving, and there was an increase in population, and therefore with increase in larger number of people, the need for settled communities emerged. So people wanted to settle up and have their own herds, have their own family. So the entire notion of community life begins. So when we kind of look into how the agriculture was increasing, what it also we need to look when we try to understand work is that when it was kind of gathering and hunting society, people were more in terms of doing enough work that was sufficient for their own survival, that is a family based work. So it was only required for their own self. When agriculture comes in, then people had to work for others, and therefore the physical labor increase. So people have to toil. The concept of labor becomes more significant. Now what is very important to understand is that one side we are saying that agriculture is hinting towards physical labor. It is a question of people toiling and working more hard. So can we consider this transition from one form of economy, which was subsistence economy, to the other as progress. And that is what we kind to understand when we look into much of the literature on industrial sociology or in sociology of work. We consider industrial society and later post-industrial society as progress from the simple society. So that whole notion of development is seen from the transition from one form of economy to the other. So the question arises is that progress? And in order to understand that, we have to go back and understand what was happening in gathering and hunting society. That is what would be referred as the earliest mode of life and work. And as I already said, in the earliest forms of society, the focus was to kind of hunt and gather, and therefore the means of survival was in terms of gathering plants, fruits, insects, hunting animals, large and small, even scavenging animal and circuses. So the whole focus was to gather food, hunt for animals around. So the subsistence was on plant and animal around there. So there was kind of tools which was very simple. There were tools which were used only to kind of gather or hunt animals, and therefore it kind of led to again existence which was minimum survival instinct was there, and there was no need for kind of doing anything which was more kind of developed or use of higher developed techniques and tools. So when this we try to understand that how did human life evolve, or what is the concept of human evolution, and that is in terms of development of tools and techniques. So individual or men, in order to kind of even go for hunting, started improving on the tools, they started improving on the techniques, and this proficiency in technology kind of did what? It kind of increased the rate of survival. So the people started kind of able to kind of take control over the fauna, flora, the environment around themselves, and that helped them to increase their rate of survival. So throughout human evolution, these tools, and that is also when we kind of try to understand what so called as primitive society, that people have kind of labeled them as primitive, in itself was taken at the face value to say that they did not have skills or they did not have a very high level of understanding. But that can be not be always be kind of considered as true. It could be considered as an assumption. Why? Because when we look into the way in which the tools and techniques were developed, it shows that they had some amount of manual dexterity, and brain were kind of level, some amount of mental skill was required in developing these. And the best part is that we understand this so called primitive simple society had a very good knowledge, and was in terms of kind of trying to understand how they made sense of the season, how they made sense of the crops that had to be grown in particular season, how they made sense of the boats that they was used for sailing. So if we will read Malinowski in his work, his Argonauts of Western Pacific, is making reference to the whole idea that we cannot kind of agree with the idea that primitive man did not have scientific knowledge. That would be kind of incorrect. It is that base of scientific knowledge that went on developing and progressive that we have the latest technology. So when we look into the Paleolithic period, which is kind of earliest period of history, the people were able to, human life were able to develop stones. And what were the stones? These stones were like bows and arrows, which was used for hunting, spear throwers, scrappers, all these instruments we see kind of had a certain amount of dexterity. It had a certain amount of manual skill or mental skill which is required. And besides this hunting skills, they also had musical instruments. So it's not only kind of saying that way they were so obsessed about hunting. They had a social life, they had a cultural life as well. So these, though if we compare it to kind of say the modern technology, it kind of appears to be crude. It kind of appears to be, say, little known, less developed. But then at that point of time, it was sufficient for them to acquire what they needed, and that is, it enabled them to hunt and gather food. So production of a stone tool required armed blows, so you had to kind of use even your physical labor as well as your mental labor, and in this kind of a correct combination. So the number of blows with force and energy would kind of lead to the making of a tool. Besides this technological skill and manual dexterity, people from the earliest modes of life, they also had a very good sense of communication skills. So, they were able to communicate well for in terms of kind of the understanding of the collective life. So, it was a collective hunting and gatherings, kind of collective activity. The entire group used to go together, and during this hunting period, they would use verbal as well as non-verbal communications. So it's again kind of a wrong notion to come up with the idea that they did not have communication skills. They also had knowledge of material and procedures, which was later on passed on to the younger generation or to the newer members of the society. So we cannot kind of label, it would be kind of a biased statement to kind of label them and dismiss prehistoric life and work as primitive. So the term primitive also in general has a lot of connotation in terms of the negative, in terms of trying to understand that they did not have scientific knowledge, they were not able to communicate well. So this when we look into the way in which we understand the way they worked, the way they lived their life, they communicated through both verbal and non-verbal communication, we understand that they were not deficient in knowledge and skills. So one of the most important society which we can understand when we try to understand the earliest mode of life and work is to understand the gathering and hunting societies. And this is very important to see that the author is using gathering and hunting. In general, it is generally referred to as hunting and gathering. Here, because it is more in terms of emphasis being paid of gathering is more important than hunting. So this society is basically an ethnographic study of a particular society in order to explain that primitive society, the so-called primitive society, had a very well developed sense of work and life balance. So it was kind of this is a society which is also being not very old, but is still found in the recent past, is the society found in Arctic as well as parts of Australia and Africa, Amazon basin and New Guinea. If we look into anthropological work on economy and political life, much of the anthropologist work coming in from Western scholars, the field work has been done in these societies. And the general understanding or the assumption was that these are societies which are the other society, and there was a comparison between the society in the West, which was labeled as modern advanced, and the comparative method, which was the kind of most important method in anthropology, was used to study the societies in Australia, Africa, Amazon basin and New Guinea. When we look into this gathering hunting society, it is kind of mentioned that society are close to extinct, because much of the society they have moved towards urban and city life, and there is a process of globalization, urbanization, and no longer even the environment kind of the availability of fauna and flora has reduced. So this gathering hunting society is kind of considered as primitive and extinct. So it is the society, the gathering and hunting was the primary basis of subsistence. As I already said in the beginning, these are societies which were pastoral, they were nomadic. They did not have a fixed place to stay, they were always on the move, and the only concern was to kind of gather enough food for themselves, for their survival. And it has been studied by a number of cultural anthropologists. It has kind of been the core focus of cultural anthropologists, whether we talk about Malinowski, Evans Pritchard, Ratcliffe Brown. They have all studied these society in order to understand religion, kinship, culture, and also in terms of the development of communication skills. So here the study is being done. The case study is of the Bushmen of South Africa, and it is being studied as a kind of a case model to understand the earliest forms of society which had kind of a gathering and hunting society. So the society is known as the Kungsan society, and they live in the Kalahandi desert. So now the whole idea is that though it's a desert, the first impression that comes in mind is that it would be kind of lacking the green fauna and flora, but in opposition to that, this is an area which is full of greenery, and the society survives by kind of on the plants and animals around them. So it gives us a very good clue of life and work of gathering and hunting society, and it's a kind of a society which takes full advantage of the nature which is all around them. So 85 species of plant included in the diet. So it's kind of a society which is completely dependent on their environment for their everyday consumption, and 23 are regularly consumed. So this is kind of nowadays also when we talk about our health, and when there is so much of problems associated with health, they are all kind of ways which is focusing to go back to the green. And there was so much of social media awareness, so much of product in the market which is trying to tell us that we should be kind of consuming plants for a high amount of protein and vitamins. So this is again that will help us to understand that this was already a part of their everyday life in this society. And this entire idea that they are consuming a high amount of plants or including these plants in their diet for everyday consumption is an indication of the fact that gathering is more important than hunting. And the hunting is not in terms of large animals, or hunting is not for the purpose of market that has started in again with the growth of industrialization and the labor market economy, where animals like elephants and other elephants are being hunted in order to get the product like leather purse and things which are kind of concerned as causing harm to the animal. Here in this primitive society, the hunting was kind of only with small animals and animals that could be part of their diet. So it we see that there is a kind of a connection between their everyday life and the economy. So the economy was in terms of a subsistence economy, and the survival was on the greenery around them. So the gathering when we are calling them as gathering and hunting society, gathering as an economic activity was only for providing them higher calories for their survival. And this again, with the fact that they were dependent on greenery which gave them a lot of proteins and vitamins, was able to improve their fertility possibility, and the population increased. So when we look into the society, which I already said is the author is kind of defining it as gathering and hunting, and therefore it gives kind of also throws light on the assumptions of the large number of anthropologists and sociologists who kind of look at these society from a different angle. So it is gathering is important here, one for their survival, for their basic subsistence need of protein and vitamin. More important is that it is a key feature of economic organization in the society. So when we look into this understanding, we also then kind of understand that work was limited to the everyday survival, to the basic need for food. Now we also look into the another element which is important to understand from an historical angle, and that is gender. Because gender, nowadays we talk so much about gender, gender wage gaps and gender discrimination, sexual harassment at workplace, gender division of labor. So we need to understand in terms of a historical approach to understand what was the nature of gender relations in the gathering and hunting society. There was a kind of a gender division, because the idea was that the men were doing most of the time hunting, because they had to move out, and the women was predominantly kind of doing the gathering. So it was the kind of beginning of a gender division of labor. Here the most important is that tasks are not assigned on the basis of aptitude or interest, but on ascribed characteristic. And what is the ascribed characteristic? Ascribed characteristic would be something which has been acquired by birth. So gender is one of the dimension of ascription. So what work would one do is not according to the aptitude or skill or the training that one has received, but it was only on the basis of the gender. So if it was a man, he would be engaged in hunting; if it was a female, he would be engaged in gathering. So this kind of help us to realize that key attribute of job was not to talk about skills, and therefore there was no kind of a hierarchy in the work itself. Everybody had a same kind of an aptitude towards work, and there was no distinction in terms of skills also. And the notion of specialization, that is one specific skill and one person doing specific kind of a work which is a part of industrial society, was absent in this society. What was prevalent was a gender division of labor, men doing hunting and women kind of doing the gathering. So when we look into the gatherers and hunting society, division of labor is influenced by biological difference. So one is to understand gender as a social construct, that is to understand that the whole idea of subordination is on the basis of the construct or the meaning that has been attached to femininity and masculinity. Now in these earliest form of society, gender was more or less kind of considered as biological difference. So it was more of a sexual difference of labor rather than gender division of labor, because it was only the biology in terms of the person which was responsible for assigning the work. So and this is also kind of understand us in terms of the understanding of gender, emergence of gender subordination, that the biological task that women performed in terms of procreation, reproduction, child caring was kind of considered as a limitation for women, and they were assigned the domestic work, or that is which they were going to gather food within their own community. And if they had to kind of travel a distance 4 kilometers, then it would be the men, because the idea was that biologically women were not capable of it. It was only kind of understanding later on that this idea of biological difference or biology is not the destiny comes in from the feminist research post 1980s. But in much of the earlier studies, even within sociology and anthropology, we see this kind of a taking for granted the naturalness of gender or naturalness of the sexual difference between men and women. So we kind of cannot arrive at a generalization because that women and men are different. It can they have to be assigned different work, and is kind of, it's not a dominant model, because it is something which was again something which was kind of the first of its time, and therefore in a way also when we talk about and look into gender and the emergence of patriarchy, many of the thinking has gone in that this entire emergence of patriarchal relation or gender subordination can be located to the emergence of private property. And Frederick Engel, in his work The Family Property and Emergence of State, gives us this idea that since this hunting and gathering people, they were working in a group, there was no kind of an understanding of family or no sense of marriage, monogamy as an institution, and even the whole idea was that it was a matrilineal society in the sense that the pater was kind of absent here. As slowly and slowly women, these hunting gathering society moved, they started owning their own piece of land, and they started keeping their own animals for herding and grading. They needed someone who could take care of it. They needed an inheritor. So the institution of monogamous marriage comes in, and from that, women were assigned the work of the domestic sphere to stay inside, take care of the child and the animals, and men started moving outside. So this is one of a Marxian theory to understand the patrilineal division of labor. So we cannot use the model in the gathering hunting society of the primitive times as a model to understand work. But then it is important from a historical dimension to understand how the gender division of labor emerged. Now, when we look into the working lives of gatherers and hunters, the general assumption is that they were kind of again a commonsensical or a laymancal kind of an understanding would be that since they were only kind of surviving on their hunting and gathering, it would be on the edge of starvation because of simple technology. They did not be able to kind of produce something extra, or they would not be able to produce for profit, and therefore they would be on starvation. But in reality, in contrary to this assumption, the people in gathering hunting society, they devoted remarkable time in meeting the subsistence need. So they kind of devoted an average of 12 to 19 hours per person to gathering and hunting. So a larger part of the day was devoted in this, and therefore many anthropologists have described the Kungsang society as the original affluent society. Why affluent? Because there was no sense of consumption. Whatever was produced, and there was survival, so there was an affluent, and they were putting in a lot of hard work. So here affluence is not in terms of material possession. What is in terms of affluence would be that they were living a kind of a happy and a content life, or we can say that they were living an ascetic mode of life. Ascetic in the sense that there was no kind of an consumption that would kind of affect the night. And I already said in the beginning that they have a nomadic life. They kind of move from place to place, and that was the reason why they did not spend too much on material possession, because they would have to then move everything, and because they also kind of if you had lot of material things, the movement would be difficult. Even infant and children were considered as burden, so there was a spacing of children, and fertility was kind of controlled. And most important is that there was no difference between work and leisure, because hunting is a group activity, and while they were working, they were having a pleasurable interaction among the members. So no questions of liking, disliking, like today we hear so much that one is not satisfied with the work, does not like the work that they are doing. Here there was no question of likes and dislike, and unremitted work was not essential to human existence. So they were kind of considered as content and satisfied. But then say around 12,000 to 10,000 years ago, people kind of started moving from nomadic hunting gathering to settled agriculture, and this agricultural revolution kind of brings in the change in the way people work was sensed, and the factor was population growth and environmental changes. So they started the warmer climate, they started staying in one place and started kind of staying, and kind of it was also considered as pre-industrial or sedentary agriculture. Here also it was being for subsistence, but they were the labor, physical labor that they were doing was more, and therefore it kind of led to stability. And then we'll see how the stability in sedentary agriculture then leads to kind of occupational specialization. Each group then started producing for their own kind, and so specialization started. Food surplus, market economy, all of these, which towns and cities, urbanization. So there is a gradual shift from say gathering hunting society to sedentary agriculture, and then to the growth of agriculture, specialized occupation, and emergence of towns and cities. So with this understanding of work in historical approach, I come to an end of today's lecture. Thank you.